Hello, Radio Hamra, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, how are you, Dr. Farid?
I'm good,
Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. I'll go right into it. I'm a 53-year-old single mom, and I had a question regarding what are the protocols or what are the... Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. What is the protocol for online dating? Let's say that, I met someone online and we met in person one time. We spent like 5 or 6 hours because it was a long distance one day. And then after that, if I expect that person to not, if we are both, agreeing on wanting to get to know each other better, is it reasonable for me to say that he would not be on that website or dating site anymore until we decide, we find out if we want to, pursue further, or if at some point we both decide that we don't want to continue to get to know one another. This 2 times when I met some person, they wanted to continue talking or emailing back and forth with other people while we're dating.
So let me, so to begin with, as far as like rules and protocols, there aren't going to be, to me, black and white things when it comes to this, because people have different expectations, and that's something to look at. So it's not that there's definitely a right thing or a wrong thing, but I'll add a few thoughts. One is, you said, are there these rules to online dating? But to me, online dating, as I've shared before, is not a thing that's separate from dating. It's a part of dating, or we can essentially say you meet online, but then the rest is what are you going to do meeting each other and getting to know each other. So online dating expands the pool of people we can get exposed to, which I think is very good, because you can meet people that you wouldn't have met or get connected to. But then you connect online through this app or whatever it is you're using, and then you're dating in, as if you would in real life. So these issues would come up regardless. Now, there's an app, and also I know a lot of times on the apps it'll say active, a week ago, active today, and so maybe you clearly know that they're on this site, whereas in real life, you can meet someone and then you're going on dates and you don't know if they're talking to other people, but this same issue comes up of, well, are we going to be exclusive? Are we going to talk to other people? What are we going to do as far as that goes? So that I want to make that distinction that, to me, yes, you meet online, but then the rest it's going to be the same as if you met some other way, that now you're going to get to know each other. So, but your question is one that does come up. Now, not that it's a rule, but very often people, when they're dating, maybe some of it's cultural, maybe some of it's timing as far as the current time period, they initially will be talking to multiple people. Especially on these apps and things, they might be talking to a few people, but even people that aren't on the apps, they might talk or text with more than one person when they're not in a relationship. And then this is the part that can get a little bit tricky, is at some point of connecting and getting to know one another, I always think it should be an explicit conversation, but a conversation needs to be had, or the decision needs to be made or reached somehow of, are we going to be exclusive, meaning that we won't be talking to, dating, pursuing anyone else while we really try to see what we have here. My own personal thought is that initially I think it can be okay to talk to multiple people, but if you really want to know what your possibilities are with the person, to really evaluate the relationship, you need to become exclusive at some point, because if you're talking to multiple people, you really don't get a sense of what it's like to be with this one person, because I've even seen people that say, well, I'm talking to this one person, if we have kind of a conversation I don't like, I just text the other person and then it makes me feel good. Well, no, you need to know what it feels like when you don't feel good talking to that person and how you resolve it, rather than talking to someone else. So I know I threw a lot at you there, but if you're saying I met with someone one time, usually for most people, they would consider that early to say we are going to be exclusive at that point. But share with me some more about what you're going through.
Yeah, so now that we are I just recently moved, so I'm even further away from him. And he has been, very transparent in the sense that when he gets when he's checking his emails, you get notifications. And then he texted me, he said, I'm just letting you know that I'm going into the website and I'm checking my messages. And, at the same time that I appreciated that, it also makes me kind of insecure, thinking that because I'm the type of person, I cannot be talking to multiple people at the same time. I feel like I cannot get all the facts straight. I need to get to know one person at a time. But then he, the other person, he was saying that, well, you are out there now starting your life afresh. If you get to meet someone in a grocery store somewhere, I wouldn't feel offended. So that statement, I don't know whether he's giving himself a permission to pursue other people or go on a date with other people, or is he just,
Well, I mean, in a way, it's not just permission, he's trying to clarify where he's at. You're right, maybe by saying you can do this, and you could have asked him, but he's trying to say that we're in a place where we're not off limits to other people or pursuing other people or being open to those possibilities. And so it does seem like that's what he was trying to make clear to you, that he's not in a place of committing to you 100% yet, or and so that could be part of a conversation you have together of, well, maybe that's what you do want, and you're not okay with him meeting with other people or talking to other people. You'd like to be exclusive. So he was saying, I want this. It seems like you're saying you'd like to be exclusive with him. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's something that you could bring up. Now, tell me a bit about what's going on. You've met once, and I guess now you're talking about long distance on top of the online, which obviously, if you're long distance, it's hard for it not to be online, but you could have been connected by friends, I guess. But nonetheless, tell me a bit about what's going on between you and him. You saw each other one time, is that correct?
Yes. He drove up 6 hours to where I was, and we spent like 5 or 6 hours together, having dinner, long conversations, walks, and that was it. And then he drove back 6 hours to where he lived. We had a very nice connection as a first date. We seemed to have this chemistry and mental connection. The only thing that kind of stumbled him was that the fact that I told him I believe in no sex before marriage. And he was a little bit thrown off by that. And he said that he's never had it like that, and he doesn't know how it's going to work out like that.
Well, so that
he's still talking about it.
Yeah. Well, and you can explore that some more, and it's important to have similar values when you're dating, and so making sure you are on the same page. Most people are not going to be pursuing that, no sex before marriage, especially if they've been married and they're looking for another relationship after divorce or something like that. So usually that won't be the case. So you could explore that with him some more, of what that makes him think. How does he feel about that? Would he want that? Is he even looking for marriage? I don't know if you talked about that with him.
He is.
Okay.
He told me clearly that he's and the reason that he's being very selective is because he doesn't want to go through another divorce. He wants to have the marriage that is going to be till end of the days.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he in that sense, we're both looking for the same thing. And the only part that he's been thinking and he's not sure about is, and he's still saying, well, it doesn't mean that I don't want to get to know you more. I want to get to know you more and see how it works out, because I've never really had this type of experience before.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I mean, it seems like you're different in a way of, like, maybe more conservative values when it comes to this, because not only are you no sex before marriage, you're like, let's only talk to one person at a time, and he seems to be more open with sex before marriage and talking to multiple people. So it seems like you're not exactly aligned on the values there. Not that means you can't be together, but it seems like it's already creating a type of a conflict that, you know, you're just coming at this from a different perspective, where you think what he's doing is not good, whereas he thinks this is actually the way it should be, and vice versa. So that it's something that needs to be talked about and addressed, and seeing are there other areas where the values don't align, because that's obviously going to be important. And from your side, to be aware, you know, this also can be because of cultural differences. In Persian culture, especially previous generations, there wasn't dating, and so then if you got introduced to someone, or there was some kind of we're okay, it's like, okay, we're going to get married, or there's not much of this process of dating as it currently might be, let's say, in the United States, of spending lots of time getting to know each other. Oftentimes it doesn't work out even after months of dating. Lots of people don't have that experience, and if you, as you described yourself as a single mom, maybe you can tell me, what is your own dating history like?
Well, I've had 2 divorces.
Okay.
And the last divorce was in 2009.
Uh-huh.
And my kids are older now. They're 26 and 23. Basically, my experience with relationships has always been very rocky. You know, I mean, since my second divorce, I haven't had a really lasting relationship, more than maybe 2 months.
Okay.
And it seems like I always come to the same type of wall, because I hate to generalize this, but most of the men out there, they cannot accept this very fact that somebody does not want to have sex before marriage. It's just creating a lot of, and because, again, I know online dating is really good in the fact that you get to meet a lot of people, but it seems like men, or people in general, they become very greedy. You know, oh, let me see what's the next best one. Let me see what's the next best one.
It can have that impact, because it's an easier way of getting, you know, as I said, maybe that's the good and the bad of it. It's good because it allows people to get exposed to more people, so if they're trying to meet someone, but then also because they're exposed to more people, there's a sense of like, well, I can keep shopping, so to speak, and like look for other people as well. So, you know, we're at a commercial break, but I do want us to continue. We can talk a bit more, you know, about these walls that you're facing and what you're going through, and trying to find someone for yourself. And you mentioned the rocky relationships you've had, or your relationship history, that might be worth looking at as well. But let's go to the commercial break and we'll talk after, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Before the break, we're with a caller. Let's go back to her now. Caller, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here, Dr. Farid.
All right. So before the break, you were sharing about what you're going through now, 53 years old, single mom, trying to get, you're in the online dating, but have had a wall, as you put it, that you tend to have a hard time finding someone who's okay not having sex before marriage, which is very important to you. And I did actually want to ask you about that for yourself. And I know this almost in a way shares a default to say that most people are going to have sex before marriage, but personally, what makes that significant for you? Where does that come from?
I'm sorry, what is that?
The not wanting to have sex before marriage. You said that's something significant.
Religious beliefs.
Okay, so it's a religious belief. And yeah, so many people, as I mentioned, they're not expecting that, so that can be an issue. Now, without having to get into detail, is it that any kind of sexual encounter before marriage, as far as even, you know, you don't have to say in detail, but oral sex or even touching, kissing, what is okay for you and what's not okay?
Touching and kissing is fine, as long as it doesn't get too far.
Okay, all right. And so, yeah, you know, you probably are going to be, in that way, an outlier. That's not what most people are comfortable with or expecting, but I don't think that means you need to ever compromise on your values, because that they are yours, and you can find someone that either has them or will respect them to a degree. So that's what I think you'd be looking for. So I think you have to be upfront about it, as it seems like you are, and with this person currently that you're talking to. So what was his response to that?
His response was that, oh, okay, I never had this kind of relationship. Normally, there are different phases in my, relationships, first dating, then getting to relationship, having sex, moving in, then marriage, but the thing, when he was, and I was asking him, why is it so important to you? He said, because my ex, we were not sexually compatible. It was great before marriage, but it wasn't good afterwards. She became very cold. And my point to him was that, okay, so having sex before marriage is not guaranteeing that it's going to be good afterwards. So why is it so important then?
I mean, you're right. His, if that's his reasoning, it almost gives evidence against what he's saying, because clearly, some people, one of the things you'll hear is, well, you need to kind of like test things out or see how things are between two people. But clearly, if he's saying it was good before and then bad after, that shows us something about getting married, and then what happened to their overall intimacy and closeness probably had an impact on their sex life, not something about that. So. Yeah, but it seems like he's saying because of that experience and having a bad sex life with her after marriage, or in their marriage after they got married, that he's maybe hesitant or afraid of getting into a relationship where there isn't a good sexual relationship. Is that what did he explain that, or I'm kind of making an assumption there, but it seems like that's what he's worried about.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when I explained to him, he was asking me what happened to your second divorce. And I told him that my ex was a sex addict. And I didn't know that till we got married. And later on I found out. And they said, see, yeah, if you had sex with him, then you would have known about that. And I explained to him, well, that's not how it works. Sex addicts, it has nothing to do with sex itself. It's not that they're not satisfied. It's just that psychologically they are... they are looking for next more exciting thing, so it's really not, it's more psychological. So that
let me stop you there for a second. You're saying he told you, see, if you had sex with him, this wouldn't have happened?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, does show that he's, in a way, that happens in these types of situations. He's trying to convince you that your value isn't right about this, that you should change it, because, see, it was a problem. It led to a problem. Which, it's funny, because both of you, the stories you have don't really, I'd say, support either of your cases in either way, really. But this is what we tend to do, is we have a position we feel is more right, and then we try to come up with reasons to why it's better oftentimes, even though our reasons might not even make sense so much. So, okay.
Can I ask you something though?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm open to, seeing both sides. Do you think that if somebody's having sexual issues, and sex is a big part of marriage, so two people should have sex before marriage?
Not necessarily. I do think that sex is a important part of a marriage, and keeping that connection and relationship there, and needs to be there. And I think it's important to explore. I do think that there can be something there, that when you have a sexual encounter, you get an idea of each other sexually, but I think that more of what is going to be done in the sexual relationship, or the health of the sexual relationship, involves what you keep doing. It's not just a compatibility, black and white, like, are you a good match and that's it. It's about a relationship you create together as well. So I don't think it's necessary that you have to make sure, and if not, then it's a problem. But I think what it does involve is that both people are open to, first of all, communicating and exploring that, and also open to, no one should do something they're not comfortable with, but they might have to be open to some new experiences with their partner in order to create a satisfying sexual relationship for both of them. So that's something from your side that you might want to be aware of, is that it's not that, again, doing something you don't want to do, I'm saying even after marriage, but that, there could be some things that you're closing yourself off to that might be more okay to at least explore a little bit. But at the end of the day, I work with a lot of couples and they've never talked about their sex life because it's sensitive, because especially if they're, let's say, Iranian, it's taboo and we don't talk about these things. My partner might get offended. I'm embarrassed to mention, it's all these types of things that come up. Or there's also this sense that, well, it should just work, and if it doesn't, that's a problem, which is not true at all. The desire to have sex is very natural, but having a healthy sexual relationship is not something that just happens automatically, naturally, or if it's the right fit for the two people. It's another aspect of your relationship that you need to communicate about, you need to work on and explore together. So I would say that because of that, it's not that you have to do it before to know, because no matter what, you're going to have to keep working on it. It's not just, oh, yeah, it's good, we don't have to worry about it for the rest of our lives. Even if it was that way from the beginning, you would need to work on it. And oftentimes, early sexual encounters aren't a good indication of the long-term sexual relationship, because there's anxieties and there's different things, there's discomforts, and people aren't as, open. There's a lot of factors there. So it's not that, okay, if you try it once, you know what you're going to have in your long-term relationship. Not at all. It's much more complicated than that.
Right. So, again, I guess it goes back to, if we continue to get to know each other and see if that becomes a huge issue for him, is that how I should proceed with this?
It could be. You want to talk to him and see, sometimes people have this mindset, well, if we're just dating and then I don't get that from you, should I get it somewhere else? I'm not saying that's the right mindset, but he might be having that, and that's maybe what he was even saying to you by saying if you, run into someone in the grocery store while you're both wearing masks and somehow your eyes fall in love with each other, which it can happen. You can meet someone now. But, so there could be something he was saying there which might be worth exploring of where he is at. Like I said, because of, how you're already describing things, there's a conservative side, and a more liberal side to him when it comes to this. So he's more open to just, date and let's see what happens, and I date. And you're more, no sex before marriage, and also no talking to anyone else. Let's just get to know each other. You mentioned something earlier about feeling insecure that he talks to other people or something like that.
Yeah, when he mentions that he goes to check his messages, my mind starts wondering, what if he's talking to other people? Maybe, he made that little trip. Maybe he went and had lunch with somebody. I don't feel like, it just a thought that just came to me right now. It wouldn't be fair to me if I'm holding, okay, I don't feel comfortable talking to multiple people at the same time, but he's not on the same page, and if he's going and, meeting other people, then it's going to put me in a bad situation.
It will, and I think, like I said earlier, soon, maybe it doesn't have to be after the first time, it could be worth exploring that. Let me ask you something. Did you tell him about the no sex before he came to see you?
Not before he came to see me.
Okay. Now, I wonder if there was an expectation from him that you would have sex.
I don't think it was.
Okay.
Because he clearly knew that I was at that time staying at my sister's house. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't gonna just, invite him over or something.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I'm not sure. I'm just wondering if he had that expectation already in seeing each other driving 6 hours. Some people can have that expectation. I'm not saying you needed to do something about that, but that I'm just trying to understand where he might be at too. And so it could be worth exploring what he's looking for, what he expects. You don't know yet if he's going to be okay with it. He hasn't made that clear to you. But yeah, it does put you in a tough spot, because there are lots of people that won't want that or won't be okay with that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't want you to compromise your values. It's personal and worth exploring for yourself what it means to you. And if it means something important to you, you got to stick to that.
Part of me is also to be totally transparent and honest with you. It's not only my belief to not have sex before marriage, but I also don't want someone to just come and I know this is going to sound like they're only taking and I'm giving, but I also don't want a short-term type of thing. I want it to lead to marriage, mm-hmm. and I'm always in the feeling that if the sex is introduced, then there's nothing else left, to have after marriage, and it's not going to lead to marriage. They're just going to be one of those long-term girlfriend-boyfriend things.
Well, when there's nothing else after marriage, I guess, but if you're holding that, I don't know if that's a good way to start a marriage either, is that let's marry each other so we can have sex, like that's the reason to commit to each other for life. But what you're bringing up, and also because you had a ex-husband who's a sex addict, could also add to that. It's already a feeling that people can have, but that they're just going to want that one thing, because there's a way, in the way you worded it, almost sound like I'll have nothing left to offer them. Like there'll be no other reason for them to marry me or stay. So maybe you're feel like the sex part might be the most important part for them, and if I have that or give them that, using, you said, the taking and giving kind of terminology, then why would they stay with me? Or what else is there to make someone stay? Or why would men stay? Maybe what you went through in the sense that men only want that, so if I give that to them, they won't want me anymore, which also is part of the Middle Eastern mindset that many people can have of it's the thing to get, and if you've gotten that, what else could you want from a woman, which is obviously not true at all, but that's the mindset that some people can have. So it seems like that is also there for you, and so your values are your values, but if that's part of it too, it doesn't have to be black and white, so it doesn't have to be not at all before marriage or as soon as they want it. It could be, I still want to wait to see what we have and build a relationship, and then maybe we explore that if you wanted that before marriage, but in a slower way that might still be slower than what some people expect, but it might not be as black and white, that someone can show you they care about you and then they love you or want to be with you, and then that could be part of the relationship, but it would never be the reason someone stays to get married, for that, especially in a more advanced age. Sometimes people who are very religious and they never had, or they don't think they can either, they might, but probably it's not going to be a reason. I wouldn't want that to be the reason someone stayed with you, was for that,
Right. Yeah, one of my friends was saying, what if, once you get engaged, then, that would be a better time. There's some commitment at least.
Yeah, I think, maybe even the way, if this is what you really feel, not to, I don't want to be like your PR here, but maybe instead of saying no sex before marriage, you can say, I'd like to wait a bit. For me, I don't like to start a sexual relationship early in getting to know each other. So it's just making it clear for you that's off the table at the beginning. But maybe you don't have to go to the extreme. Again, I don't want to just do some semantics and change the wording around, but even what you're saying, that if you're open to what your friend said, it seems like you might be open to it. But again, don't feel pressured by, definitely not me and either your friend. It has to be something you feel okay with at the end of the day. But it's something to be aware of, that if you say, hi, nice to meet you, no sex before marriage, it might make them feel a certain way, that, okay, because it also makes them think of how you might be overall with things. Is there some really rigid way of life in general? So just being aware of that, but I think there is a protectiveness clearly there, that they're going to just want that, and like I said, because of what you went through with your ex, I think it made you even more sensitive to that, understandably, and that might be worth working through. We're actually out of time for today, but something to look at. You might want to look at the wounds that you carry from those past experiences and how they might, we use our wounds because of them. We have to protect those wounds, but it might prevent us from actually creating the type of relationship we want. So something to think about. I do have to sign off.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So, do you think that it would be okay when we next time talk to each other, I tell him I've been thinking about this, and You know, I mean, I don't know how to word it.
Here's the thing, yeah, think about it some more, and then to tell him. You know, so don't. You know, right now you're saying, well, should I tell him this? Well, think about it first, and then see what you come to, and tell him what you're thinking. You know, I'm not going to say what you should say. And again, we have to wrap up. You can call again another time. We can discuss it further. But appreciate the call. Wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day. All right, big thank you to Ghazaleh here in the studio. You've been listening to In Session with Dr. Farid Holakouee. Have a wonderful day.